I need you to understand something before I tell you what happened on that highway. When you see someone walking in the middle of the Mojave Desert wearing a long black coat in 100-degree heat, you should never stop. You should never roll down your window, and you should absolutely never let them into your car. But I did all three, and now I know why his hands were stitched to his jeans. I know what was staring at me from the mirror, and I know that the woman smiling back at me wasn't my reflection. Let me start from the beginning. The Mojave Desert stretched out before me like an endless sea of dust and heat. I'd been driving for 6 hours straight, and the highway felt like it went on forever. The air conditioning in my car hummed steadily, fighting against the brutal afternoon sun that beat down on the cracked asphalt. I was heading west to start over. A new job, a new city, a new life. The kind of fresh start that requires leaving everything behind, including the memories I'd rather forget. Out here on this empty highway, there was nothing but me, my thoughts, and the endless stretch of road. I like the silence. I like the predictability. Every mile marker was exactly 1 mile from the last. Every rest stop appeared exactly when the signs promised. There was comfort in that kind of certainty. I prepared for this trip carefully. My car had been serviced 3 days ago. I had 8 bottles of water in the cooler behind my seat. My phone was fully charged, though there was no signal out here. My purse with my ID and credit cards was tucked safely under the passenger seat, completely out of sight. I'd learned to be careful. I'd learned to be smart. The road ahead shimmered with heat waves, making the distant horizon look like it was melting. Nothing moved out here except the occasional dust devil spinning across the desert floor. No other cars had passed me in the last hour. It was just me and the emptiness. That's when I saw him. At first, he was just a dark shape in the distance, a vertical line against the flat landscape. As I got closer, the shape became a man. He was walking along the shoulder of the highway, moving slowly in the direction I was heading. He was wearing a long black coat that reached almost to his ankles. In this heat, in the middle of nowhere, I checked my speedometer. I was doing 75 miles per hour, and I passed the last gas station 40 minutes ago. The next town, Kingman, was still 90 miles ahead. There was nothing out here. No buildings, no side roads, no places where a person could have come from. My EMT training kicked in before my common sense could stop it. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, possible mental confusion. Those were the first things that came to mind. Someone dressed like that, walking in this heat without water or supplies, could be in serious danger. I should have kept driving. Every instinct told me to keep driving, but I slowed down anyway. I pull onto the shoulder, about 50 feet ahead of him, gravel crunching under my tires. I put the car in park, but leave the engine running. Through my rearview mirror, I watch him continue his slow, steady walk toward my car. He doesn't speed up. He doesn't wave. He just keeps walking at that same measured pace. I roll down my passenger window and lean across the seat. Hey, do you need help? Are you okay? Nothing. He keeps walking, getting closer. I can see him more clearly now. Average height, average build. His face is turned slightly downward, so I can't make out his features clearly. Sir, do you need water? A ride? Still nothing. He's about 20 feet away now. I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. Something about the way he moves, so steady, so mechanical, makes my skin prickle. When he's 10 feet from my car, I try one more time. I can call for help if you need it. He stops. The sudden stillness is more unsettling than the walking. He stands there, perfectly motionless, his head still angled down. For a long moment, nothing happens. Then, slowly, he turns his face toward me. I can't describe his features. I try, but my mind slides away from the details every time I focus on them. His face is like a blank space, something my brain refuses to process. Not scarred or damaged, just empty in a way that doesn't make sense. Without a word, he walks to the passenger door and pulls it open. Wait, I didn't. I start to say, but he's already climbing in. The door closes behind him with a heavy thud that seems to echo in the small space. The temperature inside the car drops instantly. Not gradually, instantly. The warm air is replaced by something cold and sterile, like the air in a morgue. He sits perfectly still, his hands resting flat on his lap. He doesn't reach for the seatbelt. He doesn't look at me. He just stares straight ahead through the windshield. I grip the steering wheel tighter. Where do you need to go? The silence stretches out. I can hear my own breathing, quick and shallow. I can hear the hum of the engine, but I can't hear him breathe at all. Finally, he speaks. His voice is dry, like wine through dead grass. Drive until the light is gone. I don't know what that means. I don't want to know what that means. I'm stopping in Kingman for gas, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. I can drop you there. There's a police station, medical center, whatever you need. He doesn't respond. He doesn't move. Those hands just rest there on his lap, flat and still. I put the car in drive and pull back onto the highway. My heart is pounding so hard I'm sure he can hear it. We drive in silence for 20 minutes. I keep glancing at him from the corner of my eye, trying to understand what I'm seeing. He hasn't moved at all. Not a finger, not a breath. It's like driving with a statue. I tell myself he's just dehydrated, maybe in shock. People in extreme heat exhaustion can act strangely. They can become confused, unresponsive. That's what this is. That has to be what this is. But the cold air, the way he knew to open the door before I agreed, the feeling that something is terribly, horribly wrong. Kingman's coming up, I announce, trying to break the silence. 30 miles. He turns his head toward me. Slowly. The movement is smooth and deliberate, like a camera panning. I'm not going to Kingman, Nightveil. My blood turns to ice. He said my name. He said my name. I swerve slightly, catching myself, straightening the wheel. How do you know my name? He doesn't answer. He just turns back to face forward. I frantically search my memory. Did I tell him? Did he see something? My purse is under the seat. My luggage is in the trunk. There's nothing visible in the car with my name on it. Nothing. Unless he already knew. My hands start to shake. I grip the wheel harder, knuckles white. Who are you? A passenger, he says simply. I need to get him out of this car. Now, I slam on the brakes, harder than I intended. The car skids slightly, tires squealing. But he doesn't move forward. He doesn't brace himself. He just sits there, completely still, like he's glued to the seat. Get out, I say, my voice cracking. Get out of my car, right now. He turns to me again. This time, I force myself to look at his hands. That's when I see them clearly. His hands aren't just resting on his lap. They're stitched to his jeans. Thick, industrial thread runs through the skin of his palms and the denim fabric, holding his hands down in dozens of places. The stitches are tight, pulling his skin into puckered ridges. The fabric around them is stained dark and dry. I feel bile rise in my throat. What is that? What did you do? I didn't do anything, he says calmly. This is just the shell. The vessel. What you see isn't what's real. I threw the car into park, right there in the middle of the highway. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely grip the wheel. What are you talking about? What shell? What vessel? He tilted his head, and I heard something crack, a sound like dry wood snapping. The road is hungry. It's always been hungry. Some people are just passing through. Others are meant to stay. And then there are the ones who become passengers. I don't understand. My voice came out as a whisper. You will. He paused, and I heard that dry grass voice again. There's a difference between driving and being driven, between choosing your path and having it chosen for you. I needed to get out of this car. I needed to run. But we were in the middle of nowhere, and the sun was starting to sink lower on the horizon. Drive until the light is gone, he'd said. I looked at the side mirror, checking the road behind me. Empty. No cars. No help. Then I saw it. In the reflection of the side mirror, the man sitting next to me wasn't a man at all. It was a woman. She had pale skin and dark hair, and she was wearing my jacket. The same denim jacket I bought 3 years ago, the one with the torn pocket on the left side. She was pressed against the glass of the mirror, her face close to the surface, smiling. It was a hungry smile, an intimate smile, like she knew me better than I knew myself. I jerked my head to look at the passenger seat. The stitch man was still there, unchanged. But when I looked back at the mirror, the woman was still there too, still smiling. What is that? I gasped. What am I seeing? She's been trying to get out, he said calmly, and you offered her a ride. My entire body went cold. I looked at the mirror again. The woman's smile widened. She raised one pale hand and pressed it against the glass from the inside. Her palm flattened against the mirror's surface, fingers splayed. That's not possible, I whispered. That's not real. The shell is just a way to get close, the stitched man said. A body that's already been used up, stitched together to hold just long enough to find the next driver. The real passenger is in the reflection. She's been waiting for someone like you. Someone who stops. Someone who helps. I felt like I was going to be sick. What does she want? Your body. Your car. Your route. He turned to look at me with that blank, empty face. She wants to drive. I didn't think. I just reacted. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, and the car lurched forward with a scream of tires on asphalt. The speedometer climbed rapidly, 80, 90, 100 miles per hour. The desert blurred past my windows. The stitched man didn't move. He sat perfectly still as the car rocketed down the highway, his hands still bound to his lap by those horrible threads. I glanced at the side mirror. The woman was still there, but now she was moving. Her hand slid across the glass, leaving no mark, no streak. She was pressing harder against the surface, and I could see her mouth moving, forming words I couldn't hear. What is she saying? I screamed. The stitched man's head turned toward me slowly. She's telling you where she wants to go. I looked at the mirror again, forcing myself to focus on the woman's lips. They moved slowly, deliberately, forming 3 words over and over. Driver's seat. Now, my heart hammered against my ribs. I pushed the car faster, 110 miles per hour. The engine roared. She can't have it, I said through gritted teeth. She can't have me. She doesn't need your permission, the stitched man said. The reflection is just the doorway. Once you see her, she can see you. Once she sees you, she can reach you. And once she reaches you, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I looked at the mirror again. The woman's other hand had joined the first. Both palms were pressed flat against the glass now. She was pushing, and the glass was bending. That's impossible. Glass doesn't bend like that. Glass breaks. But this glass was flexing like plastic, warping outward as she pressed from the inside. I could see the surface bubbling, stretching. How do I stop her? I shouted. You can't stop her. You can only delay her, or give her what she wants. I'm not giving her anything. I jerked the wheel hard to the right, trying to throw him off balance, trying to break whatever connection existed between the shell and the passenger. The car swerved wildly, tires screaming, but the stitched man remained perfectly still, unmoved by the violent motion. The woman in the mirror screamed. I couldn't hear it, but I saw her mouth open wide, impossibly wide, in a silent shriek of rage and hunger. Then I understood. The man wasn't just a shell. He was an anchor. The stitches weren't holding his hands down. They were holding him in place, keeping him stable, so the passenger could use him as a bridge between the reflection and reality. I had to break the connection. I reached across with my right hand, keeping my left on the wheel, and I grabbed the rearview mirror. It was mounted on a ball joint, and I twisted it hard, then harder, until it snapped free with a crack. I threw it out my open window. It tumbled across the highway behind me. The woman's scream intensified. I saw it in the side mirror, her face contorted with fury, but she was still there, still reaching. The mirrors are just windows, the stitched man said. She doesn't need them to get to you. She just needs a reflection. I looked down at my driver's side window. The sun was setting now, turning the sky orange and red. And in the darkening glass of my window, I saw her forming. The pale face, the dark hair, my jacket. She was inside the car with me. Her reflection stared at me from the window glass, only inches away. I could see every detail of her face now. Her eyes were my eyes, but empty. Her smile was my smile, but wrong. She raised her hand in the reflection, and I felt cold fingers brush against my arm. I screamed and swerved again. The car fishtailed, and I fought to control it. The stitched man's body tilted slightly, but remained seated. Then he moved. For the first time since entering my car, he moved deliberately. His hands lifted from his lap, and I heard the sound of tearing. The threads were ripping through his skin, and the denim shredding both. Blood, dark and thick, oozed from the wounds, but he didn't stop. He reached across the center console with those ruined, bleeding hands and grabbed the steering wheel. No, I screamed, trying to push him away, but his grip was impossibly strong. He pulled the wheel hard to the right. The car left the highway, tires hitting gravel, then sand. We were heading straight for the desert embankment. I slammed on the brakes, but we were going too fast. The car hit the slope, and the world exploded into noise. Metal crunching, glass shattering, airbags deploying. Everything spun. Sand and sky and pain. Then silence. I opened my eyes. My head was pounding, and I tasted blood in my mouth. The airbag had deflated, and I was slumped against it, breathing hard. The stitched man was motionless in the passenger seat, his head tilted at an unnatural angle. His hands, still bleeding, rested on the dashboard where he gripped it during the crash. I had to get out. Now, I fumbled for the door handle, my fingers clumsy and shaking. The door was jammed. I put my shoulder against it and pushed with everything I had. It groaned, then flew open. I fell out onto the sand, gasping. The sun was almost gone now, just a thin line of orange on the horizon. The air was cooling rapidly. I crawled away from the car on my hands and knees, then forced myself to stand. My legs were shaky, but they worked. I stumbled forward, away from the wreck, into the open desert. Behind me, I heard a sound, a scraping sound, metal on sand. I looked back. The passenger door was opening. Slowly, the stitched man's body was moving, not sitting up, not climbing out, dragging. He was dragging himself out of the car, pulling his broken body across the sand with those ruined hands. But his eyes were empty, dead. Whatever had been animating him was gone now. This was just the shell, moving on instinct, trying to complete its purpose. I ran. I didn't know where I was running. Away from the road, away from the car, into the darkening desert, where the rocks cast long shadows and the sand was still warm under my feet. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. I collapsed behind a large boulder, pressing my back against the rough stone, trying to catch my breath. The sky above me was turning deep purple. Stars were beginning to appear. The first real darkness I'd seen all day. Drive until the light is gone. I'd made it. The light was gone. Whatever this thing was, whatever the passenger wanted, I'd survived it. I'd escaped. I pulled my phone from my pocket. Miraculously, it had survived the crash. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. No signal, of course. But I could use it to record what happened, to leave a message just in case. I opened the voice recorder app and held the phone up to my mouth. "My name is Nightveil," I whispered into the phone. "If anyone finds this, you need to know what happened on Highway 95 today. There was a man, or something that looked like a man. He was stitched together, used as a shell for something else, something that lives in reflections." I paused, catching my breath. My hands were still trembling. The woman in the mirror, she wanted my body. She wanted to take over, to become the driver. But I got out. I crashed the car, and I got out. I'm safe now. I stopped talking. Something felt wrong. Cold. That same sterile cold I'd felt in the car. I looked down at my hands holding the phone. They looked normal. Shaking, scratched from the crash, but normal. I was still wearing my denim jacket, the one with the torn pocket. I touched my face gently with my free hand. It felt fine, warm, real. But then I saw it. The phone screen had gone dark, in power-saving mode. And in that black glass, I could see my reflection. I was smiling, not the smile of someone who just survived a terrible accident, not a smile of relief or exhaustion or fear. It was that hungry smile. That knowing smile, the reflection of my eyes, my own eyes, were dull and vacant, empty, and as I watched, unable to look away, unable to move, the reflection raised its hand slowly. Deliberately, it held up 2 fingers and, with careful precision, pressed them down against its own palm in the reflection. Once, twice, 3 times, mimicking the stitches, marking where the threads would go when this body was used up, when it was time to become the next shell, the next vessel for the passenger to use. My mouth moved, but I couldn't control it. The words came out in my voice, but they weren't my thoughts. I got out. I heard myself whisper into the phone's recorder. But she didn't need the car. She needed the new driver. And I just left the other shell behind for the next fool on the road. The recording clicked off. No, not I anymore, stood up from behind the boulder. My legs moved smoothly, purposefully. No more shaking. No more fear. In the distance, I could see the lights of an approaching car on the highway. Someone was coming. Someone would stop to help. Someone always stopped. I began walking toward the road, my hands held carefully at my sides. Soon, I'd need to stitch them down, to keep them still, to make the new shell look broken enough, desperate enough, that the next driver would feel compelled to stop. Because that's what good people do. They stop. They help. And the passenger is always grateful for a ride. Behind me, the wrecked car sat silent in the sand, the old shell long gone, dissolved into dust. Ahead of me, the highway stretched endlessly into the darkness. And somewhere in that darkness, the next driver was coming. The next body. The next home. The monotonous hum of tires on asphalt grew louder as the approaching car got closer. I walked steadily toward the highway's edge, my shadow long in the headlights. I raised my hand to wave. They slowed down. They always do. I am Ms Nightveil. Do not forget to subscribe, and I would see you in the veil.